This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Friday's edition of the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clark and three fine colleagues alongside me to talk through the latest LFC talking points. We're going to get into UEFA's release on sporting merit, what it means and how it might play out in the Premier League. We're also going to talk about the Reds' teenage sensation Harvey Elliott as well. There's some ongoing transfer links through the week too, before we round things off with a very different team selection this week. Alongside us, our very own nomad, Mr. Ian Doyle. Doyley, how are you?
I'm okay, yourself?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. We've got Alan Partridge on the bookshelf this week, and I suppose that's quite fitting, is it?
Yes. You've thrown me there with that question.
That's all right, no worries. Ian Doyle's had his own shaving, gone for some facial hair, but Theo Squire's still championing the cause of just absolutely grilling it out. Theo, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Chis. The more you mention it, the more it's not getting touched. So keep going. Keep protesting.
Can't wait for us to get back to the office and see what it looks like then. And Kiva, how are you?
Very good, thanks, Guy.
What's your facial hair, Kiva?
Shaved it off.
Great start to the podcast. Let's get into things straight from the off. We'll go into the announcement from UEFA yesterday, them talking about sporting merit and how effectively they want to see UEFA European qualification for cup competitions solved in however the 2019-2020 season can be brought to a close. Doyley's term sporting merit all of a sudden seems to have become the buzzword.
Yeah, well, it's two words for that. And sorry to pick you up on that. I think basically the point that everyone's read from the UEFA statement is that they're essentially saying we don't want any season to be cancelled. There's no reason for it to happen. They are obviously looking at it from the point of view of European qualification, Champions League and Europa League, because they're already, well, they still have to finish this season's competition. They're looking to next season, trying to move it forward and seeing who gets through. And they would rather place be given by the league, individual domestic league associations to teams who've achieved something through, as you say, sporting merit, i.e., doing something on the pitch rather than calculating some numbers off the pitch to do with stuff that's happened in the past. I mean, there was a story knocking around earlier this week that perhaps if they did it on the old coefficients over a certain amount of years, that Arsenal could get into the Champions League, and that got knocked down straight away by this UEFA statement. I think people are perhaps misreading it slightly because it is just to do with European qualification. It isn't to do with relegation or promotion directly. But obviously, if you take it through to its logical conclusion, it surely must do if the Premier League and the Serie A and La Liga and all of those leagues that have still got a fair bit left to play. And unlike in Germany, who I'm sure we'll mention in a bit, there's some suggestion we're playing in 2 weeks. They're a long way further down the line than any of these other leagues. So there's still a chance that the Premier League doesn't get finished in the way that we used to. But as you say, the UEFA statements where they're talking about merit suggests that there will be a way, whether it's points per game if they don't play any games, whether it's playoffs if they can only play a certain amount of games. And it does open up the possibility of there will be some dead games, dead rubbers towards the end of the season. They just might not get played. To be honest, it's if there's games, say mid-table teams, that it doesn't really matter either way, they may not get played. I mean, that's not ideal, but what UEFA have done is they've given all the leagues, including the Premier League, the opportunity to make these decisions, and it won't affect them as long as the teams who qualify for Europe and by definition win the league and get relegated, it's been chosen by what happens on the pitch.
Yeah, interesting point as well. And even as you said, the dead rubber, we don't know how finances in the game are going to change. But if a side either say got to 40 points and then had a run at the end of the season and climbed 5 places, that would be worth £10 million to them. So I mean, they might want to play those out. Kiva, on this sporting merit idea, then, as Doyley says there, it is based around European qualification for club competitions for next season. But of course, it would stand up for Liverpool should it then be the season being resolved, that actually, the league title is won, and hopefully it's given true reflection in just how far and above Liverpool have been to the rest of the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. That tweet I saw the other day, and someone, I can't even think who done it, and it was basically like, everyone's moaning about like if Liverpool get handed the title, but Liverpool are the only team who've qualified for Europe this season, and I don't think it's something people are really thinking about in terms of, what an incredible season Liverpool have had, and I don't think any sort of, any decision that's made, I'm thinking, Liverpool rightly be deserved the title and wrongly, not be given it. That would be the wrong thing to do. I'm just getting a bit fed up of it all now. Is anyone else a bit bored of the whole conversation, because it's the only conversation we can have? It feels like the only sort of news when we're just clinging on to, we're just waiting for these lines to come out from these meetings, and it just feels like we're not really getting anything. And that's obviously because it's just such a, use the buzzword unprecedented time, and we're just waiting and waiting now, aren't we? I think the whole thing about Germany and the Bundesliga coming back into the play just seems like, I know they've been battling hard against the coronavirus, and widespread testing. I don't know if that's helping them or keeping the number of deaths down, but fans will either return, but obviously not before all this is sort of sorted out, because I think that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. And Theo, it's all around sort of having natural conclusions to seasons. UEFA saying in the statement that they'd hope that the manner in which this can all be resolved would facilitate clubs obviously being able to qualify on that sporting merit, and hopefully, as Doyley said before, it might even be an introduction of some kind of playoff system. But I suppose the Liverpool fans eyeing that 100-point target and even trying to surpass that and get more points than Man City had done in 2018, that's obviously now looking as though it's very much on the back of the situation, taking that out of hand. But I suppose it is somewhat of a frustration that Liverpool put got all the way through to March. They've gone 3/4 of the way through the season, and all of a sudden that place in the record books like that might be denied.
I think you've got to remember where Liverpool have come from, and the fact it's 30 years they've been waiting to win this league title. If you'd said to them at the start of the season that you're winning it on the last day, on goal difference, last kick of the game, you'd have taken. No Liverpool fan was bothered about breaking records, going unbeaten, all these other added stories that we've seen across the season. They just wanted that league title won, and they've deserved it. The fact that they're only 6 points off, they're really unfortunate they've not already won it. So whilst it might be a little frustrating when you're looking back at it in years to come saying, oh, there was a real chance to break every single record going, you've got to the context of what else is going on here. And at the end of the day, Jurgen Klopp, the players, it doesn't matter whether they win it by this record number of points or they just sneak it or it's given to them on a technicality. They've deserved the league. They're going to win the league and they can go to bed, no Premier League winners, hopefully within a couple of months.
The only way that Liverpool can't win the league now is if they lose 9 games and Man City win 9. So I think it's fair to say that Liverpool are the only team that can beat themselves to the title now. People talk of fading and cancelling. It's not going to happen, I don't think. Pretty sure it's not going to happen. So bad news for West Ham and Tottenham and teams like that. But, good news for Liverpool and Leicester and to a certain extent, Man City.
And obviously we've seen the lockdown extended in sort of the last few days into sort of another 3 weeks. We've been in this situation now in terms of lockdown over a month now, over 4 weeks of it all being going on, yet we do read, and as you alluded to even before, Doyley, that in other countries they're beginning to try and make tentative plans and steps towards returning behind closed doors.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think, as Kiva said, Germany, there's a reason why Germany are far ahead compared to everybody else. When you consider Germany's a bigger country than the United Kingdom as well, has got more people living in it. They're slightly fortunate in the fact that they acted early and they've got, it's the home of so many pharmaceutical giants that they can test. And there's an awful lot of reasons why it is, and we could be really debating those. But going back to the football, it'll be interesting to see what happens when the Bundesliga does start, because, I think they've said May the 9th is the date they want. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen then. But it looks as though they'll start before everybody else. It's what people make of watching games, because there'll be no fans there. It'll give people an idea or a chance to kind of get used to the fact that they'll be watching a different kind of football. I mean, the rules are the same, the laws are the same, everything else is the same, but no fans there. And it's I'm sure we'll watched loads of games in the past where we've gone, or played in them where there's been no supporters. No one's been watching really, apart from like about 3 people. And it's in that sense, it's not unusual, but it will be weird to have these, massively well-paid players, fighting for something that's so important to so many people, and there'll be nobody there, but they'll all be sat watching at home, or they should be sat watching at home. But it will, the German league, I think, as I say, it is leading the way. Spain, there's some suggestion that they could restart in June, but as you said, Guy, the government's locked for another 3 weeks. I think it was last week. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another 3 weeks on that. That takes us through to almost June. And then, well, I'm not saying football is a special case because there are other sports. You look at the likes of rugby union, rugby league, cricket season would have started. These sports that are reliant on coming through. Okay, to a lesser extent, the Premier League clubs, but you go down to League One and League Two, they're still having the debate over what they're going to do. I mean, this week the National League decides to just end their seasons. So the reason for that is because there'll be no fans at the games, there's no income, and there's lots of other sports that's in the same situation. So it won't go on forever, but quite how and when it's going to restart in a way that we can actually watch, whether it be on television or there, it's entirely down to the advice that the government are getting from whoever they're getting their advice from. So, I think it's just a waiting game. I know Keith was getting a bit bored talking about stuff about the league, but for us, it should really be quite good because it's the only thing that's actually happening. So we're actually able to talk about it. But the reason that no one knows is because nobody knows. Simple as that.
It's waiting for that first team to act, isn't it, with Germany? I think there was talk there that they might stay behind closed doors for all of next season. The fact is that football is going to have to go to basics when you're taking the fans out of it, and it's just being appreciating it that we can actually see 22 men kick a ball around again and just enjoy sport.
I can say that I've mentioned this to, I think, I was speaking to some people before, that there's absolutely no chance that the whole of next season will have no fans, no chance whatsoever. And I'll tell you why, because if there's no fans in the game, that means there's no fans at any other sport. Premier League teams, as we just mentioned, they can continue. Most of the others would go to the wall. Almost all the other sports would as well. By definition, you wouldn't have any pubs and restaurants open, so all them would disappear as well. You'd also lose your shopping centres, nobody could go to them. And then suddenly you reach the point where you go on cinema as well, you couldn't go there, or the theatre. So you reach a point where you go, what is the actual point of us doing anything? So that's the difficult, for minds greater than ours, that's when someone's going to have to make the different decision. What's more important? People's health short term or people's health long term? It's got nothing to do with football, but it just happens that football is one of the things that we're obviously more interested in than most, and I'm just waiting to see.
You got into a bit of a rabbit hole in terms of the situation and just how bleak it could perhaps look. Thanks for that, Doyley.
Well, my point is that won't happen. So the people who are saying that it's going to be another entire season without fans, no chance. No chance.
Well, you heard it here first. Let's move on, though. Let's move away from the bleak prospect of what we're in right now. And let's look ahead to the future. And one man who'd certainly signed for Liverpool is Harvey Elliott, Kiefer. And he's been speaking with the assistant manager, Pep Lijnders, in an alternative way of doing interviewing. But it was quite interesting that Pep Lijnders was the man who was given the responsibility of doing Harvey Elliott's first senior interview with him. And I suppose he came across quite well and had a fair bit to say, did Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, you can't get the staff these days. You've got to get your coaches out and get them to interview. No, I think it was quite a quirky and fun interview. I know Ian done the story from it. But he looks like definitely like the bright thing. At the FA Cup match, the derby against Everton, like my mum didn't know every player, and I took her to the game, and she was just like, we were in the main stand, and obviously he was on the right wing for a bit, I think, in the first half. And my mum pointed at him and she was like, who is this kid? Who is he? And I was like, Harvey Elliott. And she was like, oh my God, he looks like he's going to be a player. And like, considering her football knowledge is okay, she just saw in him something and was like, he's going to be good. And I think that for me just was like, yeah, if my mum's saying it, you can see it, and she doesn't really know what she's looking for almost. Then he's definitely going to be a star. She's going to walk in a minute like, oh, see, did you say? So I remember obviously that. I always think about that. And then in the interview, I think the line that stood out was Salah's message to him in the gym, just keep do the next weight up, work a bit harder. And I think that sort of gives us a little bit of an insight into Melwood, how the dressing room is. And the older lads sort of pushing the younger lads coming up. And I think they must all see Harvey. I've been at open training a couple of times, and he doesn't look out of place at all. And of course, like older players must see in the younger players who they think, I mean, they wouldn't be training with this world champion team, would they, if the manager didn't think they belonged there? So they definitely do. He's definitely a bright spark, and I mean, I can't believe he's still 16. To be honest, I feel like we've been talking about him forever. And if next season all gets back underway normal as we can, then we'll see a lot more of him.
Yeah, incredible to think that at his age, he's just turned 17 and sort of eligible to signing a first professional contract. But it is absolutely mind-boggling, Theo, that this is a player who could, for the best part of a decade and a half, have a career at Anfield. Obviously, should it all go well for him.
Yeah, it's the reason why Liverpool fought so hard to sign him, isn't it? Like, when you sign a player young, you put them almost straight in the first team, they're going to have a bit about them, aren't they? And like we've seen all these young players in the past for Liverpool, where there's been a lot of talk about them, and you've watched them and they've sort of been on the edges of games, they've not quite taken on, but there's still talk and you've still got that hope, that expectation. I'm thinking like Harry Wilson, Ben Woodburn. There's potential there, but they've not quite done it in the first team, and that's why they've had to go out on loan or drop it down to the reserves again. Whereas Harvey Elliott, the first time everyone's seen him in whatever game it was, it's like, wow, he's 16, he's got something here. And it's the same with the players who are in the first team this year who are that young. It's like Nico Williams, Curtis Jones. Those are the reasons why these players are in the first team, training with the world champions, working so closely with Jurgen Klopp, and why he rates them so highly, because they've got to have a bit more about them to make this impact in the first team. And we've seen in the past where it's perhaps been easier for youngsters to get the opportunity, and then the circumstances of games gives them minutes, and then either up to it or they're not, they fizzle out a little bit. You have to be at the very top of your game and almost judged as a senior player straight away to get the chance, just because of how good Klopp's Liverpool have become. And the fact they've got 3 or 4 young players, Harvey Elliott being the lead one, who are doing it, just testament to the work the youth coaches are doing and the talent that is coming through.
No, Doyle, he's a player you rate, and I've seen him playing for the youth sides as well. But I suppose it speaks volumes that as soon as he came in to the squad during the summer from Fulham, he's been in and around that first team training picture, at least, by and large, for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, he came in and he got given I think it was up at Murrayfield, the friendly against Napoli. He came on towards the end, and straight away you could see, well, he's going to have no problem in terms of confidence on the pitch, at least. Off the pitch, he seems a nice enough lad from, seeing him around and listening to what Pep Lijnders had to say today, and also actually listening to him speak. Consider that he's only just turned 17, and he was, he seems quite grounded. So I know his family tend to watch him when he's playing for the under-23s at the academy. I've seen them there. So he's got everything there for him to have the basis to the most of the talent that he's got, which, as Theo has said, is just every time you see him play, everyone who sees him for the first time, as Theo said, you just go, who's this? He's reasonable, like whether it's Kiva's mum or whoever. Everybody just thinks exactly the same thing. You see him, and that's quite rare, and it's hard to then try not to go overboard with him, because the reality is he's played about 6 games for the first team, if that. One of them for about a minute in the Premier League. He's got himself he is a world champion. He was on the bench for the Club World Cup game, so he's got that medal. So he started his career by being the best in the world. So I'm not sure where he goes from that. But you're right. There are a number of players who went through at Liverpool who you try not to put too much on them, because, as Theo said, we've had many in the past where they've shone very brightly, for a very short amount of time, and then they've not even gone on for careers in the Premier. They've had to drop down the divisions. That's perfectly fine for these players because they've got a career out of their chosen profession. But in terms of Liverpool, they need players who they are European and world champions. It's a very difficult team to get into, and the fact that the likes of Harvey, Curtis, Jones, Nico, they're being given an opportunity, and there's lots of players apart from them, such as the ones who played against Shrewsbury, that you think you'll see them a bit more next season. I actually think you'll see them if the games get played this season. You mentioned this in the past, that there's such a quick turnaround of games that if Liverpool have already won the league, these youngsters will play. They'll be playing in games. They'll be given a chance. In some ways, weirdly, it might be better for them to be playing these games in front of no fans, because there's no expectation on them in terms of on the terraces or in the stands, I should say. And they can get used to playing at that kind of level, that tempo, because it's totally different playing in the first team. It is playing at the under-23s. And Kiva, what Kiva hasn't said is that you got an exclusive chat with him at Tranmere, didn't you?
I did, to be fair.
Yeah, he hadn't even signed and posing for pictures with the Echo's vest.
Yeah. But what I will say about him is, you know, you think of these like players who've come through of all this. I mean, it was always going to be more pressure on him because Liverpool didn't sign anyone. It was only Sepp and obviously Adrian Lonergan come in. That was always going to be big anyway, you know, especially when he, you know, the things he'd done at Fulham, the records he broke there. He was like, what, 15 when he featured for them and went into school the next day and was doing exams and stuff. Like, just that's fairy tale, you know, proper just madness, really. What I will say about him is he just seems like a player who will cope with that kind of not pressure to him. I think he's so confident in the way he plays. He's got that bit of swagger, and I feel like he's a player who can. Some players can just absorb that and, you know, take it with them. And I feel like he'll be one of them players, and that's a quality that you can't really give. You just, you know, he's just got it in abundance.
It's always harder with the younger players as well because the really talented ones, like Harvey Elliott, thinking back to Steven Gerrard, Michael Owen this far back, they're small when they come through young and they're playing with kids that are 2-3 years older than them. You get hype about young players, the ones that beef up early and they're absolutely dominating the level and they'll get pushed up just because they've matured a lot earlier than the rest of the players they're playing against. That's not been the case with Harvey Elliott, and he's still a young kid. He's so confident on the ball. And I think he said in this interview today, he's fine with the first team because for practically his whole career as a teenager, he's been playing against people that are 2-3 years older than him, having to be used to being lead off them and trying to retain that, show them up the way he can and get every little advantage. So he's already got the attitude there and the mentality to deal with it. And that's why he can easily go straight into first team training and be up against, say, a Virgil van Dijk and not look too out of place. Grant might not win too many one-on-ones or in the air against Van Dijk, but it's a great learning curve for him.
Yeah, far cry from what I was up to at 17, driving a J-Reg Vauxhall Nova with a manual choke and only 4 gears. But hey-ho, we all have different upbringings coming through. But in terms of what he said, though, Doyley, as well, one point I wanted to just sort of bring up was the role the experienced players play, the likes of James Milner and primarily Adam Lallana, because, of course, we know that his contract's coming to an end and likely to. These guys are there on the training ground, doing the stuff that we don't see, obviously, on the pitch, although it was quite visible, I suppose, against Everton in the derby at Anfield, the role the senior players took that day, helping the youngsters through. But just as professionalism that rubs off on the young players, like Harvey Elliott, like Curtis Jones, just teaching them the little nuances it takes to get right to the top.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, before we go any further, you had a car when you were 17. That is some going, that is. Anyway, yeah, going back to your question, I think it's interesting because it's easy for him to say, like, I want to be like Steven Gerrard and I idolise Mohamed Salah, because I imagine most people do, whether they're in the squad or just watching in the stands or growing up following Liverpool. But it's that he comes out and they all say it, that, you know, it's James Milner. He's not saying that, it basically said everybody helps, but there are certain players in particular who specifically help. And it's Lallana, it's Milner. And Milner we know about when they played Shrewsbury in the FA Cup. He was there in the crowd behind the dugouts, and he back in the dressing room after the game. We've done stuff on him in the past. With Lallana, it's interesting because, you know, it's fair to say he's not exactly the most. In fact, Milner, to an extent, for most of his Anfield career, wasn't a huge favourite, universal favourite amongst supporters. But in the club, valued him. I mean, Klopp from the very start, he would rather. I think, well, he basically said for Milner, as long as he's at Liverpool, Klopp, he'd said there's always going to be a place for James Milner. And I think he would probably say the same about Lallana, but the exception being, I think Lallana's a couple of years younger than Milner and probably thinks he can get another couple of years out of his career. This is Klopp talking about Lallana, by the way. Probably thinks that Lallana can get a few more years out of his career, while he no doubt want him to stay for another year. At least it looks almost certain he'll go at the end of the season, and he'll get himself a good move. I mean, with the teams that have been talked about him, Leicester City, they'll be in the Champions League. So we're talking about a player who can do a job at the very highest level. But in terms of, you know, what he offers around the training ground, you know, we've seen it. We don't have to be told it. We've actually seen it ourselves. You can see it in some of the actions. You can see it with the way they interact with the younger players. And Lallana played a lot of games in the League Cup this season. So these are players, people who've been down the journey that these youngsters have been down. Mohamed Salah's had a completely different journey, Sadio Mane has, but these are people who've come through clubs in England. So that's why these players, the youngsters coming through, can relate to it, because they come through the academies, they've got to deal with first game in the Premier League, deal with the media, the spotlight, and all of this kind of stuff. Because it's not as though Milner and Lallana are bad players. At the time, Milner was he the youngest goal scorer, the youngest player in Premier League history? Lallana, he's always been highly thought of, certainly on the South Coast when he was coming. I think he came through at Bournemouth, was it? And then he went to Southampton. So they've always had this expectation. So they know what it's like to deal with that straight away in their careers, and also to then cope with it changing throughout their careers. So they're just trying to obviously benefit Liverpool, but also make sure that these young players get the best start they can possibly have in their careers, whether it's at Liverpool or else.
It's funny to think 15 years' time we're going to have James Milner and Adam Lallana Premier League managers, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott at the end of their careers in that senior role. And it's going to be all these coronavirus babies there trying to break into the first team at speed, with the arm around the shoulder, giving them all the experience and wisdom to try and get them in the first team.
Harry Kane will still be the young player of the year, though.
No, certainly. And I suppose even on Lallana is what he was saying. He's a guy who talk about that professionalism and the fact that some youngsters will go on and maybe not make it at Liverpool but have careers elsewhere in the game. Adam Lallana is someone who, after coming through with Southampton, was playing League One football and knows exactly what it is like, obviously, even down at that level of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at Adam Lallana taking the step to Liverpool was, an important one in his career, but a massive decision for him to make. He was captain of Southampton, wasn't he, at the time? And, he's won it all pretty much with them on the way up to the Premier League. And I feel like, that was the next step for him to take. And obviously he took it. So I feel like when we're mentioning that experience and the advice from players like that, it's just so crucial that the young players are getting it, because obviously even just things about like, you think Harvey Elliott will be looking to break into the England first team one day, and that kind of advice he will be, maybe won't ask outright, but Milner and Lallana will kind of know what they would have wanted someone to tell them, and probably what they got told at that age would have probably been a little bit different to what the players are getting told now, probably a few more swear words and whatnot back in the day. Because Milner come through, didn't mention like generation where now he's on cleaning boots. They're just, people are cleaning their boots, which is, just nuts, isn't it? If they're not cleaning them. Yeah, I think, what was your original point, Guy? Because I've gone on.
To be fair, you're not too far away in terms of Lallana's upbringing and playing down at sort of League One level. And as you say, I think Milner probably of that last generation really of cleaning boots. We'll move on. Just quickly wrap up a couple of transfer lines from through the week. And Doyley, we spent a lot of Monday's podcast talking about free transfers, whether Liverpool would now all of a sudden be looking at signing free agents and the like. I'm beginning to wonder whether Mike Edwards and the guys at Mel would listen into the Blood Red podcast, because immediately, a few days later, there's links with Chelsea's Willian.
Yeah, I think it's more the other news outlets might be listening to our podcast. Michael Edwards listening to them. But yeah, well, true. To be fair, true. But I don't think it'd be okay. Even if he was listening, I don't think he'd be picking up transfer tips from us. Let's put it that way. But yeah, Willian. Now, no need for that. You might be on the other side of the world, but there's no need for that. Anyway, Willian. Yeah, I'm told that's the. I mean, it was just reporting in Brazil said that Liverpool contract talks. Me straight away, it smelled a little bit of an agent drumming up interest, and as far as we know, it's the thing. As far as we know, Liverpool aren't interested in him, right? But we know that this is such a strange transfer window. Whether we've done, it's almost like you can't completely 100% rule anything out. Anything could happen because everybody's looking at creative solutions to. What will be transfer problem, possibly Shaqiri, whether he goes. That's another thing. We've done this before as well. So, as I say, at the moment, Liverpool have no interest in Willian, and I would be, given the fact they nearly signed him 7 years ago, he's a bit of a different player now to what he was 7 years ago. And if he can't get in the Chelsea team, why is he going to get into the Liverpool team?
Yeah, unbelievable that it was 7 years ago, 2013. But that was on the same day, though. There's noises coming from Timo Werner's camp again, Theo, saying that he's ready to join Liverpool. He's not any player in the world ready to join Liverpool right now.
It's pretty much why every single player that's a free agent, if they've got a little bit about them, their agent's going to be saying, "Oh, Liverpool want him," feeding that out just because they want their names. Liverpool and Timo Werner, we've been hearing this for a year now, that he wants to come to Liverpool in one way or another. And it's always when the sound bites are a bit quiet that, there's another one coming from his camp, talking up a move, wanting him. It so happens to be at a time when Liverpool are not in a position to make a move because of everything that's going on at the moment. So it's almost, I'm still here, I'm still available if you want me. Not quite a come and get me, but he's getting his name back out there. And it might not be that Liverpool make a move because of all these circumstances. But if you're another club that are interested, you think, hang on, we need to make a move here to get him if Liverpool are interested. It's just agents playing the game. Part and parcel of football.
Is it not, though, Key, that one of those where it begins to become maybe, I don't know if desperate's the right word, but a little bit desperate from Timo Werner, where all the noise is coming from him? It doesn't strike as quite like how Liverpool do their business, that this is, as Theo says, been rumbling on for a year, even if not longer. And yet we're probably no further down the line than we were when the initial links came through.
Yeah, I think it was nice when he was first talking about Liverpool and Klopp, and it was like, oh, yeah, I like this. He was sort of, flirting a little bit with the club. And you do like that because, we're not always used to that with, like, say for Fabinho, for example, there was just not an even there ever, was there? And then the next minute, this midfielder signed where, I think throughout, because we've had such a good season, I think transfers have been kind of put on a back burner. And then because Liverpool are doing so well, and now there's no football, it's all we can really talk about, isn't it? But when Theo was speaking then, I was thinking, it is getting a bit desperate now. If you're, I don't know, maybe he's just so keen on the move, and Liverpool have sort of like now in a position where they're not willing to sort of make a move because it is such a weird time. Maybe he's getting a bit because he does want to play for Liverpool. Like, I want to play for Liverpool, you know what I mean? Don't know. My agent's been trying his best, but we'll see what happens there. I'll give you the exclusive when I get it.
Is that your normal agent?
I'm tired. But yeah, I don't know. It is a bit like I just like the secrecy of it and little hints and tips of like people following people on Instagram and stuff, and like liking people's posts or maybe a cheeky comment, like those kinds of like hints, rather than someone saying, I love Liverpool and I'd really love to play for Jurgen Klopp. I just think it's nice, but you just can't happen like, just like boom, Liverpool, Timo Werner, and instead of Timo being the dude with the sign, just holding up the sign saying, Liverpool, look at me, because I'm sure Liverpool are very much looking at him, as are a lot of elite clubs in Europe.
It's a word of warning on Werner, though, because granted, the Germans are very upfront. Like, if you ask them a question about his future, Timo Werner is going to answer it, his agent's going to answer it, and you're going to get a fairly on answer, you'd leave. But he was first linked with Liverpool, I think it's probably over 2 years now, and the sound from the club then was, we got Ryan Brewster, we don't want him. But the expectation was that Timo Werner would go to Bayern Munich. They'd had these talks for however long his contract was expiring. I think it would have been this summer coming up, and Bayern wanted him to sit tight and come on a free. He didn't want to do that. Leipzig didn't want to let him go on a free, and there was all those rumblings there. It turned a bit nasty, so he signed his contract with this release that will get him out this year. When he spent a whole year basically saying the exact same stuff about Bayern Munich, his agent was saying the same stuff, and it's only when Munich have seen he signed his new contract, go, no, we're not paying anything for you, we want nudging you a free. Then he said he wants to go to Liverpool. Now these sounds coming up again when Liverpool have maybe backed off a little bit. It's just Timo Werner. It's the way they set up themselves, the way they try and get a move. It didn't work for him for Bayern. We can't say if it's going to work for him for Liverpool. But if fan or you're looking at the club and you look at how Liverpool's done their business with all these players, like Kiva mentioned with Fabinho or with like Salah, Mane, there isn't that element to it. So it's very different, and it's where the Klopp wants that player who is going to be so vocal, and it's about him, so to speak, when at Liverpool. If you're going to be a success, you have to be about part of the team. And if Timo Werner joined, he's not going straight into that starting 11. So it's an interesting juxtaposition there. That he's going to have to be, something's going to have to break for him to get the move he wants. and he might just sit for another 12 months, which he's had to do already.
Yeah, I suppose the only protracted one that really sort of springs to mind, Doyle, was when they obviously went after Van Dijk and eventually got him. But as both Theo and Kiva say, normally Liverpool can conduct sort of business this publicly.
I only think that's a recent development. I think in the past, Alisson was only a couple of years ago, and that went on all summer, whether they were going to go for him or not. So, South the year before, they knew they were looking for a player. I think it was Brandt, wasn't it? The Bayer Leverkusen guy, I think. And once it became obvious they weren't going to go, they couldn't get him. They were looking at other things, and Salah was one of them, and that worked out for them. So it's probably a bit misleading to suggest that Liverpool do all their transfer business on the quiet. I mean, there's Minamino was fairly quiet. As you mentioned, Fabinho was very quiet, which there's a story behind that one. And then there's, Adrian was done very quickly. Harvey Elliott was done reasonably quickly, but they're not big name players. The bigger the name the players we've mentioned, as Theo's mentioned with Timo, Werner, then the more likely is that it's going to land headlines. And I think Theo's got a point. I think it's certainly at the moment it's a lot more Werner wanting to join Liverpool than the other way around. And I think part of the reason for that is because Liverpool, as much that he wouldn't get in the starting 11. I think it's more he wouldn't get in the predicted 11s. But then when the actual games come around, he'd find himself playing every other week or 3 out of 4 games. That's just the way things would work. And Liverpool need that option because then they can't rotate other players. So I don't know. It's how much Liverpool be willing to pay and whether Werner would be happy to not be considered an automatic starter. Because to be honest, if any player coming to any club, let alone Liverpool, and just says, I'm only joining because I want to play every week, then you just say, get lost. Because what happens if they're playing incredibly poorly and they're still expecting to be playing? I don't think it should work like that. And certainly when a team who are 25 at the top of the Premier League, the world champions, as they still live in European Cup holders, then they should be in a position, their position of strength, and they're doing the bargaining rather than the player.
Yeah, very well put. Well, wrap things up. Last week we were a World 11. We did a team selection because on the Blood Red podcast, we've not obviously been doing our team selections at the end of podcasts and have that itch that needs scratching. So we're going to this week go with another team selection. The idea being this week, the idea behind it actually inspired by our very own Ian Doyle, who's done a piece on the best players to wear shirt numbers during the Premier League era for Liverpool. Well worth a check out. So we're going to go through a team basically of players. As last week, only 3 players from the current side in these teams, but a different player in every position, obviously, with a different shirt number. So you can't have 2 players with the same shirt number. So the number 9 for debate. But Theo, do you want to take rather an alternative route on this?
I'm putting a protest here because I thought you made it too easy. You can have any squad number from 1 to
go through then. I'll kick things off with the goalkeeper. I'm going 25 there, and obviously that is Pep Lijnders, because with 3 players of the current squad to fit into this side, I'm not going to burn one of those straight out on Alisson. Doyley, I was wondering what your thoughts are.
Oh, Alisson's the keeper.
Alisson's the keeper.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so you're going safe as houses in goal with Alisson. Keeper, yeah. What are you thinking?
I mean, do you have to ask? It's Alisson all day. I love him, but Alisson's my man.
So the number 1 is the goalkeeper. And Theo, your 2 choices?
Pep Lijnders in the non-1 to 11, Alisson in the 1 to 11.
Right, so those at right back, I am going to go to our highest number, 66, and Trent gets in there for me. Doyley, is he making your team?
Given the fact we can only have 3, then no, Rob Jones is number 2.
Rob Jones, number 2. Keith?
I'm going with you, Guy. It's got to be the Scotland team, hasn't it? The future of the bizarre, so he's definitely in there. And you think that eventually he'll drop that number down, don't you? What do you reckon?
Yeah,
not from what that story was the other day.
Yeah, I think he'll keep it.
Do you reckon?
He's got to be the most famous number 66 in world football ever.
Like Carragher kept 23, didn't he?
Exactly, yeah. Well, Fowler was 23 before him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the Premier League came out with when Renato Sanchez went to Swansea wanted 85. They had a thing about squad numbers, but I suppose if you're a young player who's come through, then they can't really do anything about it.
And if you look at Liverpool's squad numbers, they are pretty much all the way from 1 to 99. Like, so many kids have numbers, especially when they've been playing against Shrewsbury and Aston Villa this season.
Theo, just number 66 getting your alternative team?
66 is in one. Number 3, Steve Finnan in the other. Steve
Finnan's birthday today, I believe, as well.
That is not why I put him in, but yeah, I think the only other option is Rob Jones. I'm a bit too young to remember Rob Jones playing. I wanted to be a bit sneaky with Arbeloa at one point as a number 2, but I needed to save the number 2 for elsewhere, and that 1 to 11.
Well, okay,
so, Finnan.
Fair enough. We sent the halves in Van Dijk and Carragher 4 and 23. Doyley, who would you have at the heart of defence?
Yeah, say them too. Yeah. I concur.
Kiva?
I'll throw Van Dijk in, but I'll give you the left field one. I'll go for Daniel Agger. I think he was number 5, I believe.
Yeah,
he was number 5. Yeah, Kiva, unfortunately, though, you burnt out, obviously, all 3 of your current players. So it'll be interesting to see where we go now.
The what? I know what you mean. To be honest, I'm doing this as we go because I didn't get the memo. So I'm just like,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And Theo, you've got obviously 2 teams that you've still got to lay 4 centre backs.
We'll do the 1 to 11 first. Number 4, Virgil van Dijk. I think obviously this is where I've saved my number 2, Stefan Oncho. I think underrated player. Well, obviously, we can't do a podcast without you. We're going to dig out Arsenal. The fact that he's basically caught out of shots on the line in the FA Cup final makes him a very good Liverpool hero. And then in the other one, Jamie Carragher, 23, and a slight cheat, Sammy Hupia, number 12.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's Sammy Hupia, first number 12. Left back, I'm going number 6 with John Arnorisa because he could hit an absolute thunderbolt of a free kick and had a fairly consistent time, whether it be at left back or left mid. Not always the best player for Liverpool, but certainly gave it his all during his time at Anfield. Doyley, who's getting that left back position for you?
I'm going to say number 12, Aurelio, simply because he's going to be fit for this week. Even though he is made of crisps.
And Kiva?
It has to be Risa for me. Growing up, my best mate Danny, he had red hair as well, and everyone called him Risa, and he was literally our favourite player. I didn't even really know what positions they all played back then. I just kind of watched it, and learning that he was a left back later on, I thought he was good, weren't he? Thinking how much he got forward, you never really expected that. Love Risa.
Spoken of on as 18 as well. Well, Theo, does he make both of your teams?
If people are counting, I've used my second current player for the non-1 to 11.
They're all great, though.
So Robertson 26 makes up that back 4, but Risa is in the 1 to 11 because Liverpool haven't really had many good left backs who have had 1 to 11. Like the fact that my first one that came to mind was Konchesky and then Christian Ziege, Abel Zell. At least Risa was stuck around it, won a Champions League, scored a few good goals. Yeah, Risa.
Jose Enrique was number 3, but anyway, you've not gone for him. Into the midfield, then I'm going Gerrard and Alonso, 8-14. Doyley, back round to you.
I'm going to say the same, but are we based this on the fact that Gerrard played in all the teams, so like Carragher, he doesn't count? Because because you're saying we can only have 3 from one particular era. But they've been nearly all every year, haven't they?
Yeah, no, it's only 3 of the current Jurgen Klopp.
Oh, the current team. Oh, that makes
it.
Oh, yeah, well, sound, yeah. They'll have them too. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm confused.
Who do you want as your middle, Kiva?
Well, I'll just copy you guys now. So we go to. It's got to be City, hasn't it? And absolutely love watching Alonso play.
Yeah, they were 2 brilliant players. And do they make both teams?
One make one make the other. So the non-1 to 11 is a 4-4-2. Gone old-fashioned. In the middle, Javier Mascherano, number 20. Number 14, Javi Alonso. Raheem Sterling, and number 19, Dio Mane. And then Stevie G with Genie, number 5, just to get a number 5 in the 1 to 11. It was and I
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was saying Mane, not Salah. Mane, not Salah. So you got Suarez and Fowler up front, Mane on the left, and McManaman on the right.
Yeah, because you obviously went for Rob Jones over.
Yeah.
Yeah, you obviously went for Rob Jones over Trent Alexander-Arnold, which.
Yeah, I'm putting Torres in. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm also going to put Suarez in, and then how many else do we need now?
You need 2 more players.
But they can't play for the current team.
Who else am I picking? What?
You can have different squad numbers as well. Just say any old players.
Sevens down.
You could have Michael Owen still as a number 10.
Yeah, I think we overlook Michael in these kinds of conversations. But if I'm putting Aga at centre back, Michael Owen's definitely getting in up top, isn't he?
Yeah, you need 1 more player, but I can't actually work out what squad numbers you've still got left.
I don't know. Jamie Redknapp.
No, keep going. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And Theo, then, to round off your sides.
The non-1 to 11 up front, Daniel Sturridge, number 15. Could have had Crouchy, but Sturridge was just super before he became made of paper. And I've got Nicolo in number 18 there. And then the front 4, I think, in this other team's just sensational. Mohamed Salah, number 11. Luis Suarez, number 7. Coutinho, don't think we mentioned, number 10. And then Robbie Fowler in the line ahead of Torres, just because Fowler was God. Torres, he was all right for a little bit. Oh, well, that's probably selling him a little short, but Fowler was just sensational.
Yeah, Fernando Torres, I think he finished second as a Ballon d'Or contender anyway. But that wraps up our side. Next Friday, we'll try and get more rhythm to our team selection as we try to dig out one each week.
It's a bit less complicated.
Yeah, well,
I'll choose 5 teams next week.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's worth picking in. People want our team selections will just go with a different theme for each week. But that wraps us up for this edition of the Blood Red Podcast. Guys, thanks a lot for your time and for your company. Also to you listening in. Until next time, though, bye for now.